Hey guys, welcome to Cinema Bounce. Today we're talking about the preseason game between the Sydney Swans and the Brisbane Lions. Big J, it was a bit of a show out there for Brisbane. Any surprises?
No, not really. I guess I kind of just wanted to see what the dynamic of Dunkley actually playing with Brisbane would look like. And obviously we got delivered, and boy, oh boy, they're another team alongside Melbourne, alongside Geelong, who just look scary. These top teams, it's like, wow, you kind of got the cut above the rest, and then everyone else is way below. And that's kind of what it feels like looking at these teams.
Yeah, exactly. You sort of have this feeling that Brisbane are really trying to play and build a team very similar to like the Bulldogs, for example, back in when they made their grand final. In terms of just the defense doesn't have to be the best. They just have to be brutal and strong and powerful in and around the contest, get the ball moving forward towards their forward line. They're I think adopting the strategy that the better offense is the best defense, really. So it seems that they're really trying to dominate in the midfield, and that midfield can well and truly dominate everybody, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have a super household name ruck. They don't really have that strong of a defense. I think it's probably their weakest point, as spoken about. Supercoach by DR, has spoken about that as well. But if you win in the midfield and put the ball forward, you don't really need a defense, right? They came in, they won this game 15-9-99 to 8-6-54. Pretty convincing thrashing. And even just a lot of their first season, maybe not first season recruits, but their new recruits they brought in, their household names dominated. Gunston did really well, Dunkley as well. And Will Ashcroft, mate. Bloody, the father-son is just too good. If they, the best team in the AFL can now get the best kid, boy, oh boy, everyone else is in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard so much about this kid. We've heard the praises, even from last year. Everyone was talking this guy up, and that he's one of the best talents. That he's like Dacos territory level good, and you're adding him to a team as stacked as Brisbane is at this point. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I know a lot of us were concerned, especially in relation to how is he really going to fit into this Brisbane midfield. We understand that this kid is super talented and he's really good, but there's being really good, and then there's being a genuine regular in a midfield that has got both Dunkley and Lockie Neal with McCluggage, Lyons. There's a lot of great guys running through the Brisbane midfield. But it just seems like this kid, Ashcroft, really is that good. I mean, he's 100% a star in the making.
Yeah. I mean, there's talk about, Horn Francis going to North Melbourne. There was talk about kind of Matt Rowell going to Gold Coast, Sam Walsh going to Carlton, obviously. These players who are really high top-tier midfielders going to weaker teams, and the development, how long it would take them to become good players. This is a guy who's just doing the same, but coming to a finalist, coming to a team that most have penciled in for the top four. His weaknesses can be covered by the rest of the team. So all you'll see now is him doing really good things. Mate, they've got a winner on their hands. He's never going to leave the club because of his family ties. Brisbane's set.
Yeah, they really are. And their forward line, I think, really got an upgrade. I think, as a lot of what we're going to say now were things that we discussed in our video with DR when we did that big breakdown of Brisbane. But, Danaher and, what was the name? Nadal's name. Nadal's actual name. The tall Nadal.
What's his face? Let me pull it up.
The other forward for Brisbane.
The tall one? The ugly one?
The tall one. Eric Hipwood.
There you go.
So you had... Yeah, I just needed some time. I'm sorry, guys. I've got Vic bias here, okay? So you had these two guys really just, I suppose, have been really helped out with the addition of Gunston. I think Gunston is an upgrade to McStay. I'm sure, obviously, Collingwood are going to love McStay, having him in their team. But I think for Brisbane, having a guy like Gunston was a terrific, acquisition. Very shrewd. He's mature. He kicked his 3 goals, and both Joe and Hipwood are going to obviously, I think, relish having that senior leadership and experience that Gunston has to offer. So all in all, I think these guys, but all 3 of them, Ashcroft, Gunston, Dunkley, I think all 3 of them absolutely play it out. They really showed very early on against a team that I think Sydney, I don't think they played to their best, obviously, by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think they fielded their best players either in their rightful position. It seemed to me like that Sydney were sort of experimenting and trying things out, which is probably why they had like guys like Callum Mills, for example, and Chad Warner play so little minutes in the midfield. It really seemed like they were trying to give opportunities to other players. I think both teams came into this game with different intentions.
I think as well, that's a big thing with preseason games. I'll use North Melbourne as a reference, though. I know, obviously, the last 3 years haven't been fantastic, but some teams will play the preseason games as if it's a final, as if it's like we're going to play our best 22 team. We're coming in to dominate. Melbourne's a good example of this. The Dogs are a good example. In this game, Brisbane was that team. Whereas Sydney's like, okay, it's a preseason game. There's no points on the line. It's not like we're going to miss finals or contention because we lose this game. How about we experiment and play around with positioning, experiment and play around with guys playing, limited minutes in different roles, that kind of thing. And because there's no real harm in doing it. So like you say, with Sydney, that kind of happened. I think as well, losing out guys like Kennedy and Hickey now, how we've spoken about, but these kind of players who are so influential in their positions, they have to find alternatives for these people. And that's kind of what we saw a little bit in this game. Where can we play our guys? Where can we experiment? That kind of thing where, we might not know. Someone might come out and actually show something because they made the grand final last year, right? And then they got dominated. So they have to try and figure out a way to negate that, do something different while keeping the consistency in the team.
That's very true. Now, I know you mentioned about Brisbane, how they don't really have any home, any names, I suppose, household names in the ruck. And that was definitely the case for Sydney. I mean, Sydney, Hickey, unavailable. Laddams, unavailable. McLean, unavailable. Amadi, unavailable. They literally had no one to play in the ruck. So they gave this guy, this 123K rookie in Supercoach, Lachlan McAndrew, 210 centimeters. The guy is taller than Witts. My goodness. And he did really well, I think, around in terms of the hit-outs. Of course, it does. You don't require too much skill when you're 210 centimeters tall. But I thought he looked really good. And Dean Cox was singing the praises of him, saying that he really battled quite well. And I think he did a really good job against Oscar McInerney and Darcy Fort in this game. So he's one that I know some people, you and I, a mutual friend of ours, very, very tempting to play this guy at R2.
Yeah. I don't think you can do it at R2. I think there's too much risk, but he definitely, after this game and after the comments that the team's made about him, has forced himself into a lot of people's teams. And Madden, for example, has just been kicked out. I love the pick. I think the loophole's important. But for some people, getting another playing player on field is better. Just don't play him in R2, guys. He'll have bad games, and you don't want to give up like 80 points to someone else.
Yeah, I think that's a question. It's almost like a philosophical question, really, when it comes to the Supercoach team, whether or not you start a loophole. And I think in general, the consensus is in most years that you don't really want to start a loophole because you really want to have all of these rookies be playing, making you money as much as possible so you can upgrade your team. And there's going to be times where the rookies that you've got on the bench are simply not going to be available anyway. They might be rested for a week simply to manage their loads. They might cop a 1-week injury, for example, or a 1-week suspension, and it might not be worth trading them out super early. So in terms of having a loophole on the bench, in a lot of situations, that will play out in and of itself. You don't have to actually start a loophole. And the loophole will only really be relevant to your scoring and giving you benefit to your scoring in the first 2 weeks. After that, you're going to really need all of the cash gen that you can get. So as long as if you're able to nail a good captain score, if you have a guy like Laird, for example, or Clayton Oliver, who you're already banking to be a captain every week anyway, you might as well not waste a spot on your bench with a loophole and instead pay up the extra 20K for a guy like McAndrew, who appears to be R1 for this Sydney Swans team. And there's really no loss there, really.
Yeah, so picking him is a fantastic player, but not at the expense of a captain option, like you were saying. Nailing your vice captain and your captain is probably the most important thing in Supercoach because teams are so even. So having him and not having a loophole, there's been some talk about it last year, and some people were saying yes loophole and no loophole. But the people that said no loophole, did pretty bad. So I think kind of the general consensus is play with the loophole. If you aim to have rookies not playing by round 3 or 4, then I think your team's flawed anyway. So pick it. Maybe chuck McAndrew on the forward bench if you have to, or put Matt in there, give you some DPP swing. He will have bad games. There might be a game or two where he gets dropped just because he hasn't done the job before. So, it kind of doesn't work that way.
Yeah, cool. All right. I think now it might be a good opportunity since we've spoken about the players that I think did really well, but it might be a good chance when we show the CBAs, there's one player in particular that all of a sudden might come into relevance. So, and I'm sure the Phantom is very happy about this one. Massive thank you once again goes out to Matt Forrest doing the Lord's work, giving us the stats. You are a legend. If you're on Twitter, go and follow him, guys, please. Parker, yep, household name, but this guy, it's the Phantom's boy. Errol Goulden, mate, with 70.4% of the CBAs, looked really good in there. Has that class that I think the Sydney Swans lack in the midfield, especially with kicks inside 50. It seems to be very much buddy or bust, but this guy's class kicking could really be that point of difference in there that allows them to make use of their forward line. Do you think that this can still hold on and be relevant moving forward, Big J?
I think next week's preseason game is going to show us a little bit more of what they're happy with doing. But Goulden did have times last year where he was basically on par with Warner or a little bit better. Some guy who, Sydney's got so many good young kids, man, that they just have to play them, right? You try and play preferred players in their position. If you can do that, you're happy. And obviously they're trying to make it work with him. Some other players, so Parker dominating through the midfield, we saw that quite a lot. I feel like he's going to be the one to take on a bit more of the mantle this year. At the start of last year, DPP came in. I think if he had kept going with his CBAs, though, if it was round 12 and he was coming up to DPP changes, he wouldn't have got it. If it was round 18, he wouldn't have got it either. So I think we were blessed a little bit by him playing it early. Goulden 70%, Rowbottom 55, Warner 44, which I found was quite interesting considering how much mid-time he got last year. I think they're trying to do the high half forward thing like they're doing with Petrarca at Melbourne. Mills getting 33 was a bit scary. So playing a lot more off the halfback position, a lot more on defense, that kind of thing for him. And then Roberts coming in as well. So more just a project type player, one of the rookies they picked up last year.
Yeah, exactly. Mills, 100%, massive asterisk on Mills. But of course, at the same time, you can also look at Warner and be like, there's no way that this is the sort of midfield setup that they're going to go with moving forward. Chad Warner is like the big name that they were really entrusting a lot more responsibility to in the midfield. So definitely keep an eye very close. In fact, keep both eyes, not just one, keep both eyes on the Swans and how they perform in this next preseason game. And then you look at the Lions, of course, Neil, big boy, Dunkley, big boy, McCluggage, big boy minutes, of course, and Ashcroft, who are the star coming in right off the bat with 44.4% of CBAs. He's going to be a mainstay. This kid's going to play every game. They really rate him super highly, and there's no way they're going to sub him out, I don't think. They're going to keep pumping as much experience into this guy as much as possible. He's their future. He's their present. He's their everything. And it would make no sense for you not to start this guy. And he's also capable of kicking goals. So even when he's rotating a half forward, he's going to get plenty of supply with that also midfield, getting the ball forward to him. And his class, he'll make the most of every opportunity that comes his way. So he is one to 100% lock in your team if he's not locked already. Bailey, classy X-Factor player. I think he gives too much. I think he's too good forward of the ball for him to have a lot of CBAs, which is why he only had 33% there, and Matheson at 18.5%, just to round out the midfield group. So thank you so much again, Matt Forrest, for providing us with those stats.
Yeah, I know Ashcroft was one that I was worried about a little bit, just with how the midfield mix would look. I know, really at the start of preseason, I was like, hey, just watch out. He might not be as much of a lock just because of midfield mix time. But other people are making way for him. So if he's number 4 in the mix already as an 18-year-old, lock and load, just be happy. Offload him at 500K kind of halfway through the season.
So that brings our discussion on the Swans versus Lions game to a close. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Please, if you liked what we spoke about and you liked our style, like, share, and subscribe, and give us a comment down below with any other questions that you may have of other players that you're keeping an eye on this year. So stick around, guys. We are pumping out the content for you as much as we can. It's getting more and more exciting.
I know. It's like 3 weeks to go, Joe. Not even 3 weeks. I think we're down to like 16 days. So pretty exciting stuff. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and then Thursday they're starting the second round of preseason games. So stay tuned for all that info on those. We've got our Supercoach group. I'll put down the information in the description down below. And remember, guys, here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so you don't have to. Bye for now.